Hello, welcome to Monday. I know it's super late compared to when I was going live, but better late than never, right? Okay, team, today I promised you a talk on junk food and processed foods, and hopefully I could get my camera to stay in that spot so we're not moving around too much. All right, what good are junk food or, say, processed foods for our results, and can they be helpful? And I know that might sound crazy, but let's just consider one thing. So last week we ended up talking about cravings, how to deal with cravings, if we're really hungry, what to do if we're not, dealing with emotions and the psychological issues that might be happening along with those cravings. So we dove into that. So if you missed all that, that's all for, you could scroll through and check those out from last week. So today what I want to talk about is junk foods. When you're craving foods, and a lot of times we know that we have alternatives to choose, right? Like low calorie, gluten-free, I don't know, all the healthy jargon, not sorry, that they put on the product. So first thing is this, and I want to just give the cons and then we'll go to the pros, because there are pros, believe it or not, and I'm going to share with you how I broke my cravings because of some really helpful tools, and a lot of it was the processed healthier options. Okay, so first of all, they are just glorified junk foods, but they might have less calories, less fat, less of something that we don't want, but in able to help manage the flavor, what they do is they pump them up full of sugar. And that's where the problem lies. So if you're a woman over 40 that is dealing with a lot of the extra midsection belly fat, and you don't know why the weight is continuing to rise, a lot of the times it comes down to two of the hormones that are thrown off. And it's not the hormones of your body fluctuating. It's truly about your insulin levels and your cortisol levels. Like when those are off balance, off the charts, then that's when we're dealing with other problems. So aside from that, if we're choosing the low calorie and all of these lower fat, low calorie diet foods, healthier options, it's processed food. So let's just call it what it is. It's still processed food. So if you continue to turn to that thinking that, okay, well, I'm not having full ice cream, I'm having like the low fat ice cream or the soft serve yogurt or whatever the option is that you're swapping one option for the other, it could be good, and I'm going to tell you how to help you move towards better results, but it also can just be another alternative for the craving itself. So if you're just swapping out a lower option for the higher option, you're not dealing with the cravings, and that might still continue to become an issue, right? So what we want to do is we want to have control of the cravings, and we want to take away the power of those foods over us. Like I wanted to get rid of me turning to sweets. So this was my story. I went through many years of struggling with diets. Okay, so when I initially lost my first 30 pounds, that was very exciting because I lost and I kept it off. And I did it with the old program of Weight Watchers. Now, I know they've changed it, and I'm not in love with the program as much as I was before, because that taught me, it actually led me to start looking into what foods I was eating. So if you're counting your proteins and you're counting how many carbs you're having and you're counting your fats and all of that, that's really loosely what the program was based around. So those of you that remember Weight Watchers, this was, 30 plus years ago. This is a long time ago, okay? And they had, it was like the portion. So you would count how many breads. They gave you these little foldable papers, note papers, and you would see protein, and then they gave you so many protein boxes. So this is before apps, okay? So you just mark off how many protein sources you had for that day. Same thing with breads and vegetables and fruits, and on it goes. So that taught me that I need to balance my foods. Okay, so that was the first thing, and that was exciting. So again, I lost 30 pounds doing this, watching the balance of the foods that I was eating, and then increasing my activity and learning about strength training and all that other stuff. Anyway, back to junk foods. So the issue, though, still came back to the fact that even though I was eating on the basis of the food plan, after it was lunch and dinner, after every day, after lunch and dinner, I craved sweets. Like I would have my meal, and then I was like, I need a sweet. It actually eluded me. It made me crazy because I wanted to know why in the world am I struggling with the sweet craving Like, I ate a full meal. I should be full, but I still want something sugary and sweet. And so I kept turning to, like, I would grab chocolate. I would grab things that weren't on the program. Okay, so they weren't the best choices. So that was the first problem, because I was now dealing with maybe higher calorie, higher fat, higher sugar choices. So what I decided to do, and this is my full confession to what I became obsessed with. They had the Weight Watcher, they probably still have them, I don't buy them anymore, but the Weight Watchers sweet servings in the freezer section. So they were these chocolate cakes, these single serving chocolate cakes, and 2 came in a box. So I would load up, and I actually always, whenever I saw them on sale, I would buy as many as I could. I loaded my freezer up, and I would literally have one after lunch and another one after dinner. And I saved my calories, however I don't know, it helped you break, not through calories, but it helped me break up the portions. Like, I had to choose like a bread and I don't know, whatever you had to choose to fit the cake in. And I had it twice a day. Now, I knew this was not a good thing to do. But what I'm going to share with you today is that was my basis for getting off of being addicted to the sugar after my meal. And I needed to realize, what the heck was I dealing with the sugar? Like, I know it was habit, but I also knew that I was missing some major nutrition basics to help get rid of that sugar craving. So if you're dealing with sugar cravings or other kind of cravings and you're turning to junk food, I'm going to show you a process to help manage that. So that's the bad news. Okay, the sake of turning from one alternative, the bad high fat, not that they're bad, the high fat high calorie foods, for a lower maybe diet type of food, or low calorie food, or low sugar food, or gluten free, or whatever. You're just switching one for another. Yes, it's a little bit less, but again, it's pumped full of more sugar to help manage the whatever fat is lost, because they're giving you lower fat option, lower calorie. So they're pumping it up with full of sugar, maybe sodium, things that you don't need a lot extra of, and it's not helping us in the long run, especially at this stage of life. So what are they good for, though? Can we use junk foods to help us overcome all the trigger foods? And I'm going to say yes, if you do this properly, okay? So number one is, I want you to notice your cues. So for me, it was the sugar after the meal. I needed something sweet. I was like, I need something sweet. So I kept turning to grabbing the lower calorie cakes from Weight Watchers. So I'm going to come back to my little board here. Knowing that, step one, decide, what do you really want? So I knew, decide what you want. I knew I wanted something sugar. I knew that I needed something sweet, preferably chocolate, because I'm a chocoholic. I love chocolate. So I want you to decide, like, what is it that you're craving, and what are you turning to right now? Are you deciding already to choose an option that's a lower calorie or lower fat alternative? Because that's okay. Like, that's the first step. So for me, and I'm going to give you my story. After each meal, after lunch and after dinner, I wanted a sweet snack. So from having high foods that maybe weren't the best choices, like just high calorie sweets, breads, chocolate, whatever, I turned to having the low fat chocolate cake. I mean, honestly, I was addicted to these things. I have to say that I'm so proud that I beat the craving. I beat having this trigger take over my life, because this took over my life for many years. And then it turned to bars, right? So all I was doing was I was switching from one thing to the next, and it wasn't helping me because I was still addicted to the thing, right? I still needed the sweets. So if you're dealing with that addiction or that need, like that obsessive need for that food, there's a reason, and you can find it. But the first step is to not eliminate it. Like, don't think I'm going to be strong and I'm going to overcome and I will not have the thing. I will not have anything. You can try to do cold turkey, but it didn't work for me. So if it works for you, I'd love to know. I needed to find an alternative. And in this, I was able to continue to move across the board to getting away from having that craving. Because while I had this, then I was searching, what am I missing? And I started to do all the research on my nutrition, on what I was eating, on what I was lacking, on all of the things, okay, and what might be the problem. And when I found, because I do the research, again, you want to track yours, research your own foods, your food and habits. I realized, and this is what I tell every woman that comes to my program, most of us are just low on how much protein we're getting. So I was low, for me, low in protein. I was turning to a lot of bread foods, low calorie foods, low quality nutrition foods, because that's what they taught me. That's what a diet is made up of. You know, how many of the diet foods can you have? How many calories does it have? And how can you continue to drop your calories to lose the weight? So that's what I learned. No nutrition, really, not much nutrition in my diet. So that's what I learned once I started to research and understand. Okay, the reason I'm craving all this stuff, but I've replaced these in the meantime, so I'm still able to keep my goals going. I'm still eating the foods, but now I have to find what's wrong with my current meal plan. Like, I'm not getting enough. Number one, protein. Number two, vegetables. So those are my big priorities when I tell women. You got to start increasing, number one, your vegetables and your fruits, making sure you're getting enough, and your protein. So if you're not already getting at least, I like to just round it up, 1 gram of protein per your body weight. You can drop it if you're not doing any kind of a weightlifting, or you just want to drop it a little bit because that makes you nervous, or you're like, I don't know if I can hit that. Then take your current body weight and multiply it by 0.7. That's really the minimum of what women should be getting. For most, anyway, it's not across the board, but I'm just going to give you an average. So 0.7 times your body weight, and that's how many grams of protein you should be getting. So I do a gram of protein per my body weight, and that is how much protein I aim for every single day. So I aim for that amount, and I don't get less. And when I started to consistently track my protein and get in the vegetables, because vegetables is an easy way to get volume in our meals, and it makes me feel better when I have more volume in my meals. I like to eat. I talk to some women that just like, they eat like birds. I'm not a bird eater. I'm like, give me all the food. So when I was able to control what I was choosing to eat, so I could feel like I was still getting all the foods and lose the weight and get the results that I was looking for, I felt like I scored. Like, I nailed it. I found the magic pill. I found the secret to long-term success. But I was still having this issue, okay? Even though I was getting my protein and my vegetables up, I had already built up a habit. So that's where the second part of it is. First part is most of us are dealing with a lot of nutritional gaps, and we need to get those taken care of, okay? Maybe you go see a dietitian, you go talk to your doctor, whatever. Figure out what the gaps are. Do your own research. Then I had to change my nutrition back up, and then I had to get rid of this craving. So you know what I did was I started to decide to make, and this is what I told you guys last week, make like a homemade recipe of the healthy, of the option that's you're wanting to eat. So when you can make it, you know what goes into it. You know how much sugar goes into it. You know how much everything goes into it. You can alter how much of it you're putting into that recipe. So say, for example, I wanted to do a chocolate cake. I did. There's tons. I mean, I found this one cake. It was called the Valentine's chocolate cake or something. I found it in the LA Times one day. These are old, guys, old stuff. And I loved it. It was really low fat, low calorie, but it was a good moistness, a good, easy to make too recipe. And that gave me that, that feel of like I got my treat. So I then went from this to my homemade option. Okay, so it was my Valentine, it was called the Valentine chocolate cake. So I went from having the Weight Watchers every single day, which I knew wasn't the best option because it's filled with a bunch of fillers and things that my body should not have been eating twice a day, every day of my life. I did not like that. So then I found a recipe that I can make. I can alter the ingredients if I wanted to, and I had control of it, and then I used that. It was good, too. It wasn't gross, because there's a lot of recipes that are just not good. So I'm not going to even play around with that. So then I went to the homemade. So again, this is a cycle. This is a pattern. So you find out, first of all, what do I want? Like, what is my problem foods? What am I grabbing? What's the reason? So for you, maybe I know a lot of women have shared they're hungry in between meals and they don't have time. Maybe they're at work or they're on the road. They don't have time to create a meal. So that's when they're grabbing their protein bars, a diet thing from, say, Weight Watchers or another, whatever, like manufacturing plan that fits that need, gives us the kick that we need, makes us feel satisfied in the moment, maybe does have some protein in it, great. It's not the end of the world, but if it's going to be controlling us, we have to figure out what's the problem. Well, the problem might be maybe you're not eating enough proper foods throughout the day. Are you starting the day with your foods? Are you managing it every few hours? Like, you should be eating at least every 3 to 4 hours and keeping the good nutrition going. So that was my first step. Okay, so I figured out my trigger, I figured out what to do, and then I created a new way from there. And then you know what I did from there? Because after this gets easy, after this homemade part got easy, then I thought maybe I can sub it out with a whole food. And whole foods are just foods with one ingredient. So think your meats, your vegetables, your anything that you buy in the store, on the perimeter of the store, it's the ingredient of the food. There's no other ingredients. It's not processed. It's not, changed at all, not altered from its natural state. So then I thought, well, look, obviously I can change it to a fruit. So that's when I went from my low-fat cake, and I made my homemade cake, right? Because this is progress. I'm now making progress. Then I took it all the way down, and I started to have, now let me just tell you this, I started to have fruits. So I played around with different fruit options, and I'm very picky with my fruits. So I finally narrowed it down. I love apples, okay? So I love apples, but I love certain brands, certain varieties. So I had to find the right variety with enough of the sourness, but not too much, right? It's had a little bit of sweetness too. And the apple alone wasn't enough. It didn't cut it, right? Because why? Because it didn't have, it was a sweet, it had the sweet in there, but I wanted something else, and obviously I was missing the fat, because I was used to having cake, homemade cake, and bought cake. Like an apple, great, it's got the sweetness, but where's my fat in it, right? There's no fat in it. So what I did is I started to add peanut butter with it. You could do any kind of a nut butter. I'm giving you an idea. You don't have to do this, but I'm giving you an idea like to how to consider your own preferences. Like, what would you like? So I started to cut up my. This is what I started to do. A lot of you guys know I cut up my apple into little pieces. I drizzled some peanut butter, like 1 to 2 tablespoons is all you need, and measure it because it goes fast. You can even melt it or warm it and drizzle it over. This is what I would do, guys. This is what I had to do to get my fix all the way to the apple, okay? So then I would drizzle the peanut butter over the cut up apple, and I bought those tiny, miniature chocolate chips, and I would just do like maybe 1 tablespoon, and I would sprinkle that over the top. I was in heaven. I'm like, this is awesome. But look what I did. I went from I was doing whole fat junk foods and cakes and whatever, cookies. Then I went to the low-fat cake. I did that until I was like, this is not the best option for me. I don't want to do this long-term. It's expensive too, right? So then I started to make my own. I found a good alternative of a recipe that worked for me, and I switched it over to that, and it was good, and I enjoyed it. But then I'm like, I don't want to have cake every day all the time. Like, it feels wrong, right? I'm supposed to be helping people take care of their health and fitness, and I'm eating cake every day. I mean, obviously I was measuring it out, but it just didn't feel right. I'm like, I could have cake. That's not what I'm saying here. But every single day after every meal, because I have to, that didn't feel right. So that's when I started to research, and I thought, okay, what I wanted sweet, and then just having the sweet whole food wasn't enough. I needed some fat on it, and I liked a little bit of a chocolate. So then I found that I could do my apple with my peanut butter and my chocolate chips, and now, guys, I can just have an apple, and I am fine. I went from having cake to having an apple. Do you see the progress of how that helped me? How these foods can help us if we use them to our advantage. If we're looking for progress and we're not using it to change one craving to the next. So if you're choosing, again, it could be one of two things. It could be a pro or a con. If it's working for you, it's when you're looking at it in this type of a manner. When it's working against you, because you're just switching, you're craving for one food to another, right? You're just still having the craving, which in the long run, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, if you're okay having cake or ice cream after every meal, well, okay, that's up to you. Now, here's another option. I know some people love ice cream, because I just said ice cream. So maybe you're eating whole fat ice cream, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to start to alternate that with maybe a lower fat, lower calorie ice cream. Great. So then you start doing that. Then I'm going to challenge you, and I talked about this last week, homemade. Buy one of those ice cream. I think Cuisinart makes some. They're an ice cream maker. They spin. You freeze the bowl, and then you take it out and you put all your ingredients in the bowl. Has a spinner, and 25 minutes you have ice cream. You have homemade ice cream, and I give you recipes if you want them. Like, just let me know. If that's an issue that you have and you want to start making it, great. Then you can move to some other options that are healthier, or you can stick with that if you're not having it every single day after every meal. Like, that's a problem. This was a problem for me. I'm just saying. Like, I didn't want to have it every day, all day. So I hope this helps you, give you some ideas. Now, here's the thing. If you're watching this and you're still watching it, good for you. You're like super interested in this and you want to learn and you want to change. I'm also offering a free list of recipes. Like I told you, I had the cake, what was it called? The Valentine's cake, chocolate cake. I will send you my recipes if you want them, but I need you to either send me your email to my personal message, like just message me, private message me, or let me know below that you want the recipe book. Just say recipe book. I don't want you to have to put your email below because then everybody has your email and that's just not right. So you can either send it to my personal inbox or comment below recipe book, and then I will message you or I'll try to get in touch with you and get you that recipe book. But guys, you can do this. Like, you can have control of your foods. You can change what's not working. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. Don't ever get into the mindset that I'm stuck here, so now I have to just live here. And I'm having the low-fat cake, so I'm just going to stay here. You can still manage it. You can still find it. I don't even crave that anymore. I can have my apple when I want to. I can have my cake when I want to. I can have my ice cream when I want to, but it doesn't control me. I control it. I decide when I really want it. And that's been such an empowering feeling. And you can do the same thing, and that makes the difference across the boards when food does not control us. And honestly, foods control us a lot of times is because we've been following diets. And that's just the problem. Diets have been the problem. They've always been the problem, and they're still the problem, and we need to change that and take control. So thank you for watching. I will be back tomorrow with a brand new topic. And any questions or any comments, post them below.